To let His Word dwell in us richly in psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs. We're to worship Him musically. We're to proclaim His Word musically. And so we want to train up our students, our children, to be able to sing skillfully with music, to understand what they're doing. The Bible says sing with understanding. But it's all couched in studying God's Word, growing up as Christian worshipers. Sometimes I know people are a little scared of music camp because maybe they're not a musical family, but it's for everybody. It's a mix of real beginners and more advanced students, and they help one another that way.
But the thing that really gives it weight and glory is that the whole week is focused towards a concert, a glorious presentation of the music we've been working on all week long. So there's this goal in mind. There's something that the students not just participate in, but actively create.
I'll see students who come in who have had no musical experience. You can tell they're overwhelmed by first day. They're just awed by it because they've been part of something that is new to them and much larger than them, something they've not experienced before. And I would say the majority of times, those kinds of students come back because they've tasted something that's really glorious, a foretaste of heaven.
These students are learning through the course of their time at music camp not to be music consumers, but to be active participants in making music. So not only to learn how to sing well, how to understand music as it's written on a page and how it comes together in a group environment, but to be able to take those experiences and have them be the seeds that are planted for their involvement their whole life in the musical life of the church. We want these students to be the next wave of worshipers in the church who know how to sing to God.
Good afternoon, y'all. Welcome to Water Break with my wife, Annie.
Not in the corner anymore, JP.
Yeah. Come on, JP. We're just going to give you the corner experience. Welcome to Water Break. As you guys know, if you want to ask us any questions throughout the show, you're more than welcome to. We'll try to get to as many as we can in the comment sections.
Yeah.
Also, if you want to email us at RenchMedia, Wrench, R-E-N-C-H, no W. You put a W in, it's not getting anywhere.
It's not going to work.
RenchMedia@gmail.com. We love hearing from you. We can't respond to all emails, but thank you for being in contact with us.
Yeah.
We're going to be in Fort Worth at the Prodigal America Conference, October 31st through November 2nd. And lastly, if you want to support what we're doing, you can join the club, the Fight Laugh Feast Club. It's much appreciated. And sometimes we feel undervalued when you don't join the club. So join the club. There's a lot going on there. You get free t-shirts, stuff like that. And it's a lot of fun. So for today's show, we're going to talk about, I mean, it's kind of a top 10 list, but it's kind of like an unlimited top 10 list.
We're not going to get through 10. There's no way.
No.
But we have a lot.
And there's more to add,
it's
too.
It's a long list, yeah.
But we want to talk with you about the top 10 truths we wish we knew 20 years ago regarding kind of health and fitness and you know, kind of the related world that's going on in health and fitness. You know, at least I've always been super skeptical of the health world, you know, especially when you ever see something like a $50 billion industry and you're like, okay, there's a lot of money there. That means likely with money sometimes comes just marketing plays.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes with money just comes, you know, them wanting to sell their products and not actually maybe giving you what you need best or maybe pushing you, advertising and pushing you into a certain diet program that you should have nothing to do with it in the first place. So
yeah.
It's a big industry, and there's, you know, a lot of confusion and a lot of half-truths in this industry.
Yeah,
even now, like I was just talking to our doctor. I was just talking to him a couple days ago, and I was like, after what happened in 2020, I just don't believe any doctor hardly at all.
Yeah.
You know, like the industrial medical complex screwed us in 2020.
Yeah.
All these doctors have been educated by the government.
Mm-hmm.
And so no wonder they listened to the CDC and FDA when the government told them to shut down and to wear a mask or whatever. It's just from those who studied hard and got their doctor degree, which is 8 years in medical school.
It's a lot. It's a lot of work and a lot of time.
They really buckled under pressure. So we aren't going to get to all that stuff today, but 10 truths I wish we knew 20 years ago. I'll start with number one since that was mine.
Yeah, the number one is yours.
Number one, all foundations are built on Christ. If we believe that Jesus is the way, the truth, and life, then we need to anchor everything we do off that truth. We need to all our foundations, whether it's fitness or work or podcasting, whatever we do, needs to be built and have a foundation rooted in Christ. And that's why, especially the fitness world, I think pushes and bristles against this one because First Timothy, it might be Second Timothy. I have a head cold today, so I'm not as clear thinking as I'd like to. But it says godly exercise is more important than physical exercise. Very simple. And whenever you start, and this principle can apply to anything, work, sports, whatever you do. If you put it over Christ, if you put it over on top, and it's on top, and Christ is on bottom, you're already off. You're already cattywampus on how you're thinking about this world in regards to your health, your body, your life, and your walk with the Lord. And the fitness world, you see, it's very me-centered world.
Yeah.
The gym culture, the mirrors in the gym are there for you.
Yes,
it's a very me-centered. The dieting is there for you. It's all me-centered. And of course, we're for stewardship, but there's this me-centeredness that needs to go. And I think this kind of strikes at the heart of it. So number one would be godly exercise is more profitable than physical exercise. What's number two, baby?
That was good. Okay. These are in no particular order. And we just we try to have lunch together on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
Gabe, even though we did this Wednesday, but we hadn't for like a month because we're too busy, but we try to have lunch. And so we were,
it's always on my calendar though.
He always, so we were like kind of making a list, and it was pretty hilarious talking through, and the list could be so much longer, but anyways, these are not in any particular order. But the next one is get annual blood work. And I put this on the list because I think it is that important and helpful for everybody, whether you are feeling good or not. And not all doctors would probably agree with me on that, but I still think it's true. And I wish so badly that I had started, excuse me, getting annual blood work a long time ago, back when I was young. And it's funny because especially for women, the tendency is just to, like, when they go through the period of having babies, they're like, you're poked and prodded and they're looking at your blood sugar and they're doing all these things. And
you get a little tired of it.
You're under extreme scrutiny, I guess, by your doctors throughout your pregnancy. And then as soon as you're done having kids, it's like we all just fall off the map, because I work with women all the time who are like, oh, I haven't gone to the doctor since I had my last baby. I haven't had blood work since I had my last baby. Like, I have no idea where I'm at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like 10 years could have gone by. And then men are even worse. Like,
don't take me to the doctor.
Don't make me go in there. Like, it's like, I don't know
unless my leg is about to fall off.
Or is it like, you don't want to know? Is that what it is? It's like, I don't want to know what you're going to find in that blood
work. I'm not going to answer that question.
Oh yeah. I think that answers that. So anyways, I just think my opinion is that good strategic annual blood work is super helpful. And again, I mean, obviously go get it done if you're feeling bad. If you're like, I think something's off. I think my hormones are off. I think something's going on. I'm tired all the time, whatever. Definitely go get blood work done, because that can be very enlightening. But even if you're feeling fine, it's really important, number one, to know that you can catch things early that sometimes you would not be showing symptoms, for. I mean, like Gabe, like for you, I'm just going to use you for an example.
Go for it.
Liver enzymes, when we got you to go in there and do your blood work, your liver enzymes were pretty high. It was pretty bad. Yeah. But you don't walk around really feeling that until, I mean, maybe you start feeling things if you're in like, stage 1 liver failure, which is obviously not where you want to be, but it's like, you don't notice that. A lot of people with like really out of control blood glucose, they don't necessarily feel that, or the symptoms that they are experiencing, they don't know what that is. They don't know to be like, oh, I have blood sugar regulation problems. So you have really low vitamin D, you may not feel that. So there's some things that you can catch with blood work that you may not be outwardly symptomatic, but you'd still want to address in a preventative fashion, right? And also, even if you go and you get your blood work and it's like, oh, you actually look pretty good, which sometimes is the case, then you have a baseline. And then the next year you can see, okay, where am I at? And the next year you can see where you're at. And if you start to see trajectories like, okay, this year my fasted blood sugar was 85. Great. Next year, 89. Okay. Next year, 93. That tells you something. It's trending up, right? And it might be slow, and you might be still in range. All those three numbers are technically in range. Most labs, you're not out of range until you're at 100, which is stupid in my opinion. But you can catch trajectories. It's just smart. It's fairly affordable. And I just
we're talking like $100, $150.
Oh, I mean, usually, and sometimes insurance covers all of it. Sometimes you got to pay a little extra if you ask for certain things, but regardless, it's worth it. Okay, it's worth it. It is so much better to address your health in a preventative way with measurable standards like this. I just think it's super important.
And related to this is like in the health world, it seems like things are so subjective in a lot of ways. Like, how does it make you feel? How are you feeling right now? Now there's some legitimacy to that. It's not like, but then it's like, okay, take this weird mushroom.
Well, totally.
It's a very subjective world. So like the blood test, like what you're trying to do there is just see what you can do in your life to make things objective as possible. To be able to assess yourself.
Well,
it's just let's get objective here.
Well, really good example, because I've said this before, and a lot of people say it. They say test, don't guess, and I really do agree with that. And I think you can become obsessive. You can take it too far, and you can be
sounds like a government drug rehab slogan.
Test, don't guess. Yeah, no, but in this you can take it too far. But for most people, I don't think they've taken it far enough. And the more information you have is really helpful. So like a good example of what you're talking about, like ashwagandha. That's an adaptogenic herb. It's wonderful. People love it. And everybody who it's known to help calm cortisol down, help manage high cortisol, which can be a very big issue for a lot of people. However, a lot of people don't understand that if, you could be somebody who's having adrenal problems, you're dealing with stress, and your morning cortisol, for example, is way too high. Ashwagandha might be a great choice for you. But at some phases of adrenal fatigue, I know some people don't like that term, but I'll use it for a lack of a better word. Sometimes their issue is actually their cortisol is too low. You want, higher cortisol in the morning. It's your get up and go hormone, right? And it's supposed to be the highest in the morning and slowly come down throughout the day. So if you're like kind of not doing well to the point that your body is resistant to the cortisol that you have, or it's not producing enough, taking ashwagandha in the morning is going to make you worse. So if you don't know, what's going on in your body, that can be a problem. So that's just a perfect example of, like everybody's just like, oh, this is good, I'll take it. Oh, do this, I'll take it. It is really good to test these things. And I'm going to.
JP actually asked, I think, a helpful question here. And I'll just say,
starting at what age?
Obviously, there's always ditches. Like, you don't want to become like a hypochondriac. What would you call it? Someone who always wants medical help and treatment.
A hypochondriac, that's someone who's like, thinks they have every sickness.
Thinks they have every sickness, but they're like constantly going to the doctor or whatever, and so you don't want to instill that in your household at all.
No.
But at what age, JP says, at what age, should you start for blood tests?
That's basically a great question. And I mean, I would just, what I'm going to give you is just my opinion. I wish I had data all the way back to when I was like 25. That's what I wish. If, like, for example, so I could have seen where in my journey of health and fitness my thyroid started to go downhill, because I only finally started getting blood work when my thyroid was tanked. And it would have been awesome to be able to lay that annual blood work down over the arc of my life and be like, this is maybe what triggered it. That kind of thing I think is really, really helpful. I would love to see, like, oh, the seasons when I was the sickest, where was my vitamin D? Oh, my hair was shedding a lot really bad. What was my ferritin? You know what I mean? So, but I'm a little bit of a nerd, and I'll grant you that. I would say minimum by 30, because that's usually where people really start. 30 to 35 is where people's health just tends to take a turn. But if you're able and you can afford it and you're interested in this stuff, I would say as early as 25 would be really, really helpful. And obviously earlier if you're having problems, right? If you're like, I think I might be anemic, or why am I sick all the time? Or I think I might be hypothyroid. Anyone can get blood work. My 13-year-old daughter could go get blood work. And I will do that with my kids if I feel like there's something going on. But I'm not going to go take my 13-year-old and have him stab her for no reason if she seems perfectly healthy. If that makes sense.
No, I don't want to do that either.
No, that seems kind of, so barring special circumstances, I would say 25. I think that would be great, but 30 minimum, I would say, but it's never too late to start. I will say that.
Why haven't you thrown Mr. F's comments up on the screen? I mean, come on now.
300 pounds.
I mean, the reality of it, Mr. F, is I'm a basketball player and I never, even in my prime, benched that. So
it was really nice for him to just throw that in there. Like just kind of randomly.
Thank you for putting that on the screen,
that's a
Neil. I appreciate that.
Compliment. You probably benched 300 pounds.
Okay, so number 3. I got a whistle in here somewhere.
Oh, here's
that
Mr.
was that was not a very good whistle.
My wife had the same experience, and bad thyroid got her into holistic lifestyle and eating. Got me into it too. Yeah. Well, okay. Thyroid is such an issue. In my opinion, it's highly underdiagnosed. And one of the biggest issues, sorry, we're still on the blood work thing, but
yeah,
I will
that's
say
fine.
this. I'm really glad that you guys have gotten more into the holistic lifestyle, and at least that journey got you there. That's great. One of the biggest reasons that people miss thyroid is because hypothyroid symptoms are so often associated with just the tired mom syndrome.
Yeah, yeah.
So
you're just tired.
Or you're just a mom. You're just, it's part of getting older. It's just part of, you know what I mean? And so I think women all the time are like, well, this is just how I feel. I have so many kids. I'm tired. I don't sleep very well. I'm weight loss resistant. I mean, like I've always been cold. My hair's always fallen out. Like
used to get, until we started dealing with Annie's thyroid in a serious way, she used to get Raynaud's. Your hands would get
Raynaud's.
Raynaud's.
And that was my self-diagnosis.
Yeah.
That's actually an autoimmune. Raynaud's is actually autoimmune.
Okay.
But and I know
her hands, whatever. Her hands would get white and cold, like randomly.
And toes would turn like white. Yeah. And it was so uncomfortable.
But that hadn't happened since you really started dealing with your thyroid.
I finally brought my free T3 up to the point where I'm not actually hypothyroid. That went away. Yeah, just one of many things. So all that to say, you guys, one of the other reasons that hypothyroidism gets missed by doctors all the time is because they only measure TSH. And there are a lot of women, myself included, at least I used to be this way, where TSH is in range, but your T3 is in the tank. So it is worth it to educate yourself a little bit on these kind of just basic blood markers, so that when you go to ask for blood work, you can be specific. You can say, hey, I'd like to get whatever annual, panels you think are normal, a CMP, CBC with differential, maybe a lipid panel. That's what most doctors will order. But then you can feel free, and I think you should say, I would also please like to see my vitamin D. I would like to see my free T3, not just TSH. Maybe I'd like to see my morning cortisol. Maybe I'd like to see my testosterone. That's horribly low in almost everybody. Ask for those things. Most doctors, if you ask and you haven't had any labs done and you're willing to pay a little extra, if that's what it takes, sometimes it is, will be willing, but they won't. Fasted insulin, that's another one. It doesn't usually make the cut for most doctors. Won't do that. Right. They'll get a glucose and they'll get a A1C, which are helpful. But that fasted insulin is so valuable. You have to ask for that. So educate yourself enough to be able to kind of advocate for yourself and ask for specific things.
I don't know what you said that made me think of this, but I was talking to my friend from earlier today, and he grew up in the Baptist circles that you didn't drink and didn't smoke cigars, kind of thing. He said, ever since I started having a little drink and a little cigar, my testosterone started increasing.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah.
With a cigar?
He said, I don't know if it's connected at all, but he's like, I started, having a little scotch and cigar, and my testosterone increased.
Actually really interesting. And I wonder if there's any studies on that.
I know.
Or I wonder if it's like just the effect of like, I'm being a man
or something.
Manly thoughts and your testosterone
I don't know.
up.
It did make me think someone should study that. Yeah.
That is funny. Okay, let's move on to the next one.
So number 3, this actually might get to maybe some Mr. F's comments here, but this is something that the health world, and if we only listen to the health world, if you only listen to the kind of the health industrial complex, that $50 billion industry, you're going to be massively skewed. That industry is massively incentivized to get you to buy their products, their diets, their vitamins, whatever.
Right.
And what is contrary to that industry is feasting. God has, he's called us to feast. He's called us to, Ecclesiastes 9:7. Solomon says, go drink and be merry. He's referring to wine there. The Lord's table is, God prepared it for us, and it has bread and wine. We joked on the show before, any diet that conflicts with bread and wine, I don't want anything to do with it. He's being
very serious about that.
But
he could be like celiac, and he'd be like, nope.
There's actually, and you'll talk about more this in a second, but just from like a worldview standpoint, feasting is glorious. Feasting is good for your kids. Feasting is good for your family culture. Feasting is good for your church. It brings people together. It brings people together, and you're celebrating the goodness that God's given. I mean, we're Christians who love the earth. We're Christians who love earthy things. We should. And feasting is such a fantastic way to build a family culture. Now, there's also health benefits to feasting. Of course, not overeating. We aren't talking about overeating. We're talking about And so why don't you talk about a little bit kind of the health benefits of feasting?
Of feasting, yeah. It's so funny. And obviously, I mean, everything we talk about, with regards to nutrition or health or feasting or this diet or that diet is so it totally depends on context, right? Like, because there are, and we talked about this actually quite a bit, this sort of concept in our last, was it our last episode about whatever episode it was about reverse. I'm like, which one was it?
I do 6 shows a week.
I know, sorry, I can't ask you. When we talked about reverse dieting, we talked about this a lot. Like, it completely depends on the context, because I could be, you know, depending on who's listening, like, because I could be looking at someone and talking to them, and they literally might be for reals feasting too much. You know, I mean, like, people can do that, and it's really easy to do in America. Like, you can literally feast like it's the Sabbath every single day if you want to. And that can be a problem, right? Where you're eating way too much, too often, not very good quality food, and because of that, your health is not where it should be, right? And so that could be some of you. You know, and it's interesting because God does tell us to feast once a week, right? Sabbath. We kind of associate the Sabbath with rest and feasting, right? And so that's regular, but it's not every day. So for those people, they need to note that, okay, ice cream once a week, maybe not every night. Okay.
This is a hard concept.
It's like, but
maybe, we're talking about like not feasting every week, every night. We're talking about special. It's a special occasion. It's a special occasion where for us, we like to do Sabbath dinners on Saturday night. And so we bring out the chocolate, bring out the wine for the kids. We
go for it.
You know, go for it. Annie usually has ice cream for me because she knows that's my favorite dessert.
He does love ice cream.
And so, but also, I think it also kind of gets rid of any stigmatism you might be developing about food.
It's very healthy for a lot. Well, okay.
Because you can be like this OCD person about food. And what we're saying is, be disciplined. But then on Saturday night, have some fun with food.
Totally.
Don't constantly look at it like it's this almost enemy to you in your life.
Like life is and these are the other people, right? So we just spoke to the people who are maybe feasting too much. Very easy to do. We have refrigerators. We have processed food that never goes bad. So you can feast too much. And if that's you, you know, don't never feast, but look at the biblical pattern. I mean, God really, it's not like that you read the Bible like a diet manual. It doesn't read that way, but there's so many biblical themes that are continually show to be true in the world of health and fitness. And it's actually funny and it's annoying because people come to these conclusions way later. Like, oh yeah, actually, if you have diet breaks or you give your clients, you know, 1 day off of their, you know, time restricted eating or whatever they're doing a week, they actually do better. Or, you know, what you need to do is have a gratitude practice. And it's like, shut up, you guys. Just read the Bible. We've known, like, God knew this from the start.
Well, here's another interesting thing is in the scriptures, you see that there was a lot of feasting days. There's particularly 3 feasting days in the Old Testament, and then there's
like annual
times of feasting. Annual. And then there's times of feasting. You know, there's a special feast that they came up with in the book of Esther, Feast of Purim. That was not a God required feast, but they celebrated because God delivered the Israelites from Haman. And so they made up their own holiday, which is fine. But you also look at the scriptures and you see, I think there was the one particular fast day that God required. There were other fast days, but one that God required. And so the balance of scriptures, you see more feasting than fasting. More feasting than dieting.
That's an interesting point. I mean, you know, there's other confounding factors though, because like back then you didn't have the kinds of terrible foods, nutritionally speaking, that you have now. So there's different things you got to reckon with, but I think that is a very valid point. But I just wanted to make the point that there are people who are feasting too much. It's good to feast intermittently. It can't be every day for most people. However, there is just a huge movement right now, and there has been for a long time in diet culture where it's constant restriction. And these are the people people I spoke to when we were talking about reverse dieting. And I do think it tends to affect women more than men.
They've been restricting themselves and dieting for 25 years.
They've been on a diet as long as they can remember.
And they're still overweight.
And it's, sometimes they're still overweight, which is even more frustrating. And then sometimes they are at the weight they want to be at, but only because they constantly restrict. It's just like eternal diet, eternal fast, eternal. And it's just,
and food becomes an enemy instead of a friend.
Yeah, it's really, really sad. And I will say to your point, and to the point we made when we were talking about reverse dieting, a lot of times, if you don't feast sometimes, when your goal is to lose weight or get to this body or whatever, that actually sabotages you. Because
how so?
Well, just like with you know, that whole concept of like depressing metabolism. Like if you don't at least intermittently and how frequently probably depends, is needed, probably depends on the person.
Yeah.
I think the once a week kind of pattern in the Bible is a great kind of starting place for a lot of people. But if you don't feast intermittently, and again, we might call it Sabbath, the secular health industry calls it like refeeds, or
Weird.
what does Ben Azadi call it? A flex day, or a cheat day, or like everyone has known this concept forever.
Yeah.
They just have a different name for it, but like if you don't do that intermittently, your metabolic rate will slow down, because your body is smart, and because God made it. And it's just like, well, if you're not going to feed me, I'm going to slow down and meet you where you're at. So not only is it a sad way to live, where you have this just like mindset of restriction, food is bad, I can't have it, I'm never going to have it. That's sad. But also you can actually sabotage your own goals if you don't feast intermittently.
Yeah.
And so it's just interesting that like these patterns are,
and of course,
always true.
One way you can apply this, let's say you really are morbidly obese, well then maybe start off just feasting once a month, diet, try to really tackle the problem that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And maybe dial it back to once a month or something. But, the normal practice in our household is we feast on Saturday night, and we try to do it once a week. And, for me, guys hate dieting. I really don't like dieting.
Yeah.
But I'm in a situation where, I have, diabetes in my family. I have, which means high blood pressure in my family, so there's certain things that, I think it's prudent for me to not eat as much food as I have been, or as I used to throughout the week.
Yeah.
But the nice thing,
your refined sugars and your carbohydrates we're limiting throughout the week for that reason.
Right. Right. And I love, having a burger, with the bun and the fries. I mean, it's just fantastic. But so I haven't been doing that. But what happens is I actually look more forward to Saturday night now.
Yeah,
I know. And so I'm like, okay, I can be disciplined, Monday through Saturday. And then Saturday night I can eat, a bigger meal, eat bread, I really don't eat bread during the week. So there's certain things, but it really actually helps I'm not even on a diet. I'm on a food plan that's good for where I'm at with my body.
Yeah,
you know what I'm
we
saying?
Look at it like a tool that we're utilizing right now.
Right.
It's not, hopefully not going to be the long-term.
And so it helps. But that helps. The feasting thing helps. It makes you not feel kind of bummed out during the week that you didn't get to eat your fries or whatever,
Yeah.
And it makes you look forward to Saturday, and it helps you kind of be able to kind of get through the week and not look at food as like an enemy, that you're friends with it.
Yeah.
You like it. You eat maybe a little more particular way during the week, and then Saturday you kind of cut loose a little bit. Saturday night.
I mean, there's so many studies that have been done that show that people in the long term have better adherence to whatever plan they're on if they get these little.
That's right.
These little feast days, these little cheat days, whatever you want to call it, right? I hate the word cheat because I think that's stupid. I like to use the word feast. I think it's way more healthy, but it's actually a proven thing. So as it turns out, just honor the Sabbath, and you'll be healthier.
That was a water sound to get to our next one.
Oh, is that a transitional splash?
It was a transitional splash.
Like
water break. We're at water break, and so we're at number 4. So again, we're kind of talking through those who just entered into the room. We're kind of talking through the top 10 truths that we kind of wish we knew 20 years ago about health and fitness.
Oh my gosh!
So number 4.
I love number 4. I wrote it myself, and it actually just comes really nicely, I guess, on the tails of the one we just talked about. And number 1. I said, if having the body you want causes you to be a crabby, obsessive, miserable cow, that's not health.
Yeah.
Oh, ladies.
Well, and it's so self-centered too. I mean, and a lot of it's very backward. And a lot of the imagery that women think, or a lot of the body that women think they need, is probably, I would venture to guess, it's probably not as informed from their husband, but more informed from like the magazine cover.
Well, and like other women
running
that industry. Yeah. It's pretty funny. Yeah. No, I mean, so many things here, but you ladies probably know who you are. Men could do this. I mean, men could do this.
Yeah. 100%.
I think they could do it. I see
women tend to deal with more of the body image side of things.
They do. And I just, so if like, regardless of what you're doing or whatever, if being at the weight or the physique or whatever that you are just so, you know, stuck on being at, if it causes you to just be a miserable person, miserable yourself, like you just are like, I'm tired, I feel bad, I hate life, I can't eat anything, I can't, you know what I mean? I can't even, oftentimes that comes with like low energy, you're not able to do stuff. It usually comes hand in hand with that. And even worse, if it's causing you to be a crabby mom, a mom who won't go places because of the food temptations, a mom who's
and a wife who a husband doesn't want to go to bed with,
or that's just like
you know,
walking on eggshells because you're just an absolute monster. It's like you have to go to bed at 7 o'clock because you're afraid that you might eat something. Like it can, women can take this really far, and you can become so obsessed and so turned in on yourself. That's not usually where you're at there. That is not physically healthy. Okay. You are not in a healthy place physically. And even more importantly, so you are not mentally or spiritually or emotionally healthy. And that means it's not health. And I think that women can get so stuck on being like, when I'm at this weight, you know, whatever you were 10 years ago or in high school or just something, you know, whatever, that's healthy for me. But if that's what you look like there, or, you know, even in just the journey trying to get there, that's not healthy for you. It's not. And we need to redefine health way more holistically than just a number on a scale or, you know, fitting into a certain size of jeans. And I hope I think I'm hitting a lot. I mean, women know exactly what I'm talking about because everybody's the same. It's like, it's a certain number. It's a certain pair of jeans. It's like, oh, it's a picture when you were 25 and I just have to get to there.
Get back there.
And it's like, okay, there's so many reasons why you might not need to get back to there. And regardless, no matter how much you want that, if you cannot be in a healthy place, like having a good relationship with food, energy is good, physically capable, you are an actual blessing to your family, you like being around your kids. How about this one? Your kids like being around you. You're the kind of mom who can say yes to going on a hike and say yes to going to this place because you are in a good place in your head and like, and you're functional, and your husband and you have a good, you know, a good relationship. And he's not like walking on eggshells because he never knows, you know, who the heck you're going to be that day or how crabby you're going to be. That's health. Both the physical and the emotional and the mental all and the spiritual all come together. And it's just something to consider, because I feel like, especially as we get a little older, us ladies can get really, really hung up on that. And health is so much more a big picture than just a pair of jeans or a number on a scale. And we got to keep that in mind.
I mean, Proverbs directly addresses this, like striving for vanity. You know, you put this in the category of vanity. I need to be at that weight, that number. You know, that kind of thing.
Or just this very like blinders on, like that's health.
And
when it's just, it's often not.
And that's,
you know, it's often not.
That can be placed under the category of the sin of vanity.
Totally. Totally. And just missed completely. And, you know, what is it at the end of Proverbs 31? Like beauty is fleeting.
A woman who fears the Lord.
I mean, like your soul is what goes on forever. I mean, we're all going to get old, you guys. And I'm not saying this like, so don't care. I mean, obviously I'm a personal trainer. I care. Like, let's take care of our bodies. Let's do what we can do. But like, eventually, like, we won't be young anymore. Eventually we're going to age. We're going to die eventually. Right. So it's like, you know, your soul is what, your character is what matters far more than anything else. And I mean, keep your priorities straight and make sure that you are defining health correctly and accurately, and you're being honest with yourself, because that, I just see that as being just such a big issue.
And so on to let's do our sound here.
Splash.
On to number 5. This is kind of related to that.
This is
kind of related to
that.
This
is a really big one. In my
if
opinion.
you love health and fitness, but your kids hate it, you did it wrong.
You
know,
this is a big one.
You know,
I think
how many parents might be like massively into health and fitness, and then their kids either grow up to reject it or kind of pretty overweight or something. You know, like there's a disconnect.
Like totally rejecting it.
Rejecting it in all its forms. And you know, obviously, you don't want to put your kids in a position where they aren't thriving, they aren't successful, and maybe it's not their gift. But
that's the challenge.
But at the same time, it's like, well, every kid can run. For the most part, maybe not the fastest. Every kid can lift up something. I mean, they're supposed to. God built them that way, you know. So, you know, build a vision for your kids in such a way they're loving kind of the you know, you want your kids to love your standard and not hate it.
It's like that's exactly right. It's like the same way you would want your kids to embrace the faith that you have.
That's right.
Right. As opposed to being like, I hate that. And as soon as I can get out of here, I'm out. You see this a lot.
Charm is deceitful and beauty is passing, but a woman who fears the Lord, she'll be praised.
Yeah, I really love that.
I had to finish that verse.
That's a really good verse for women who are really into fitness, because it is a very easy ditch to fall in. But
and you want to get praised the right way, not the wrong way.
Right. But anyways,
so back to number 5. If you love health and fitness, but your kids hate it, you did it wrong.
Yeah.
And you don't want to take your standard, which can be good and right and fine, and then hang your kids with it. You know, you don't want to turn your standard into a gallows for your kid. You don't want to turn your standard into something that is exciting, reachable, fun, engaging, and disciple oriented. Teaching your kids.
That's really well said. Actually, that's really well said, because I see two different things in this business, because I obviously work with and know a lot of other people in the industry who are also very into health and fitness. So I see a lot of this, and I've watched it play out over time. So usually either in terms of mistakes and things not going well with people's kids, you see either what you said, where it's like, I'm really into it, so you're really into it. And it's this like militaristic, like no sugar in the house ever. We run 5 miles every day, no matter what, like where they just, and it causes them to just hate it. Right. Or like, we're a football family, so you're playing football and I don't care, you know, like that kind of approach. And we all know that, I don't know, we all know that dad, that's like, that can be a dad thing, big time. And a lot of times kids rebel and they're like, I hate this. I hate you. I am not having a great time. You have not loved me in any way. You have not created or presented me a paradigm that is attractive or fun or anything. Right. And so you can lose your kids in the health, you know, nutrition area of life that way. But you know what I see just as often, if not more? I see health and fitness people being so obsessed and concerned with themselves that their children just sort of fall to the wayside. And I've seen that a lot, like where it's like, you're almost too busy for them. You're too busy eating clean. You're too busy getting your run in. You're too busy
getting your lift out.
Because and anyone who's really into fitness knows what I'm talking about. I'm aware of this. I have to fight this temptation. And I think I've messed up in the past. I think I've not been perfect on this at all, where I've been too self-absorbed. And I think you can be self-absorbed about things that might be, you know, theoretically good. Like you could be self-absorbed and be a drug addict. That's obviously all bad, but you could be self-absorbed even with something that is on paper a good thing, like taking care of your health, right? Like, and I don't think it is objectively selfish at all for a mom or a dad to do something to take care of their health. Not at all. But if you're like so obsessed with yourself, spending so much money and time and energy on your own diet, on your own workouts, on your own schedule, on your own everything, and your kids are like, you haven't included them, you haven't taught them, you haven't brought them along. They're just over there eating chicken nuggets and you're eating this pristine thing. You know, you're like off to the track. You never take them with you. You never slow down on your run so they can come. I mean, there's been times where I like running with the girl, and this is an amazing progression because it pays off to start your kids young and bring them with you. Number one, it shows that you're like, I love this. And it's a good idea. It's a blessing to my body. It's going to be a blessing to yours. So that's why I'm passing it on to you. Like that's
why I'm bringing you with me.
And also it's like, hey, I like having you with me because I just think it's so easy for kids to be like, they don't want me around. You know what I mean? Like whatever, this is their thing. I hate it. Mom's just gone all the time. She's at the gym all the time. I never see her. It's just something that pulls that parent farther away from them. But I used to, when I would run with my girls, have to, because if I wanted to do like a 5-mile run and they couldn't make it that far for the out and back, I would literally do half of that, like go out a mile with them, come back, which as a runner is very mentally frustrating. And then I would go out and then come back again. And like, I know that doesn't sound that big, but just making small adjustments like that so that you can accommodate then. Now my daughter runs a 5:40 mile and I'm trailing behind her.
She's killing
it. So that's where we're at.
She's in 8th grade.
So I'm scared of them now. And it was a very short time.
It was.
They come to the gym with me. I mean, they know how to do it all. And Cash will be, our son will be included in this also. He's just the youngest. So we just haven't.
He's just turning 10.
He's just turning 10. So we're getting there though. We're getting there. And you better believe he's going to be in the gym with me. And I'm going to slow down and I'm going to teach. And it's going to maybe not be as great of a workout for me, but I don't care. Because I want them to learn. So you guys, if you're really into it, I think it's okay if your kids aren't into every single thing that you are. Like, you know what I mean? Like I was actually just talking to Liv today on the drive to school because we're talking about, she's like I just said, she's 13. She seems to be a pretty gifted runner at this point. And she seems to really love it. In the fall, there's cross country and there's volleyball. And this is actually like weighing heavily on both of our souls, Liv and myself, because I don't know that it's possible to do both.
I don't want.
I know. I know. I knew that would be what you would say. And also, she's not a straight A student, so we got to balance academics also. Yep. So and volleyball is so near and dear to my heart. I grew up. I played all through high school. I loved it. I love it. And so nothing has made me happier than having my daughters play volleyball, and they have been since they were young. But I told her, I was like, listen, if you truly love running and that this is what you want to do, I'm open. Like, we're open to that. Like, to you actually not playing volleyball and actually shifting into being a runner. Like, I mean, I'm open. That's just a small example, but like, there's a balance. Like, you know, our kids are active. Our kids share our same paradigm. Generally, we talk it all, about it all the time, about taking care of our bodies, being healthy. But the way that they do it might end up looking different than the way we do it. And that's completely fine, you know? And I think that all has to happen. So just check with your kids, you guys. Check with your kids. Don't make that mistake.
Okay. For number 6, again, for those who are joining, we're going to kind of top 10, although this list could be a lot longer. Top 10 truths I wish we knew 20 years ago, 21 years ago. Why not?
Why not?
Number 7 is not.
Nope, 6, right?
Oh, number 6, we're at 6.
It's right there.
If you care more about being thin than being strong and functional, you're not thinking long term. Some with muscles.
Same with muscles.
Same with muscles. Oh, okay.
You should just let me read them.
Same with muscles, but no cardiovascular health. So you're kind of hitting the men and the women.
That's
and the
man
men
version of not thinking long term.
So thin, and I mean, how many women do you know that are thin and can't lift a thing?
Most of the women
who are thin and can't bend over very well to pick up their kids or whatever. Or there's just they've worked so hard on trying to keep this some sort of idea of what they think is a good body weight,
a number on the scale,
instead of like being functional and strong. That's one thing I've always appreciated about the way, you know, I'm against women, you know, working out for building, you know, for bodybuilding competitions and muscle and all that stuff. And one thing that you've always, I think, done well is you use functional workouts. You work out for functionality. You work out for being able to pick up your grandkids in 20 years. Go ahead and talk. I got a cough.
Well, that's true. I mean, to be clear, working out for function versus working out bodybuilding style, a lot of those movements overlap. But I understand what you're saying. But functionality does really matter to me. And
sorry, keep going.
It's okay. It matters to me both in the short term and the long, which is kind of what this point is getting at. And, you know, I'm especially see it now, being almost 20 years into this career of training people this whole time. And with the being thin versus focusing on muscle, usually you see women being guilty of this. And, you know, in the moment when you're like 25 or 30 and you're like, I did it. I'm so thin. I'm so light. I'm wearing the jeans. Look at the number. I'm 130 again or whatever. That's all fine. It might hurt you even then because usually your muscle mass is low. You're not very functional. You're probably very prone to injury. You might already be on the trajectory towards like osteoporosis, things like that. But as time goes on, you hit perimenopause, you get into menopause. It is going to hurt you so much that you did not take more care and spend more time on just building some muscle so that you have that lean body mass. And we've talked about this in past shows. It is so important for longevity, to fight frailty, for bone density, for injury prevention. It becomes a lot harder to build muscle as you get older. It's not impossible, but it is harder. And skinny fat is a really bad look the older you get. When you just have no muscle to fill your skeleton out, like I have never worked with a woman in my life who was ever like, oh man, no regrets that I didn't strength train. I mean, like every single time they're like, what was I thinking? What was I thinking? Like, why did I not do this?
I cared more about weight loss or this ideal weight than actually having some strength
like to undereating, no muscle, very injured, usually depressed metabolism, functionless, can't lift your grandkids. And then they come find you. And I mean, you always try to help people where they're at, and it's never too late, but it's just like, my goodness, start young and shift your priorities a little bit so that your main focus is building strong, functional muscle. It is so important. And ladies, it really is hard to get jacked. It really is. Gabe always feels like he has to throw this little, I mean, and I don't want women to look like she-men, but I mean, like, the honest truth is, like, most women, most of you could not look that way if you tried.
That's true.
Okay. Like you really couldn't. So like, don't be scared of that at all. it's just really, really hard to do. Now, sometimes girls, I'm just going to take my time on this point because I just want to. Sometimes girls do have to adjust though, because if they've been in a body, like their body has been so like under muscled for so long, growing a little bit of quads, growing a little bit of glutes might make you go up in a pant size. And at first you might be like, whoa, I don't know about this. You know, I'm not used to this. I don't feel as thin. Maybe the number on the scale goes up a little bit because you actually put some muscle on. So for some women,
some healthy weight,
and
some
this
healthy
is not
weight
like
on.
masculine muscle. This is like any muscle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You had
like,
done.
Oh, my shoulder. You know what I mean? So like you might psychologically, some girls are just coming from a place of being so like scrawny. I don't know a better, I'm not trying to be rude, but like there's no better word to use, that you might psychologically have to make some adjustments. And that can happen, you know, and you got to get over it, and you will adjust, and you will, oh my gosh, you will feel so much better, and you will be metabolically in such a better place to, you know, as you age and you look at your life long term. And like I said, the same goes with dudes who are only concerned with building muscle and how that looks in the mirror, you know, curls for the girls or whatever. But they don't think about their cardiovascular health. It's obviously cardiovascular health is important for everybody, but women are much less likely to ignore cardio. A lot of times you have to like pull them off of the spin bike to get them to do other things. But men often are doing zero to or very little to zero cardiovascular training. And as we talked about, heart disease is a real thing. High blood pressure is a huge problem. High triglycerides is a huge problem. And, you know, you're not really helping your family out by dying at 65. You're not. So get on that. Think long term. It's not all about how you look. Like think long term and be a grandpa who can go on a hike with his kids.
Joy says, this reminds me of something I learned in ballet, both how to be strong and that strong muscles don't have to be large.
Oh, that's very true. That's a really good point. It's kind of specific. A lot of times when you look at different athletes, it is interesting to see
sprinters versus marathoners.
Yeah, totally, totally, because they're all strong in their own way. Yeah. But back to when we did, Joy, we did a show, I've stopped guessing which episode was what, on strength training. And one of the things that we talked about in that episode was the difference between training for hypertrophy, which is growing muscle, and then strength. And actually, when you train for strength, your muscles can and often do not get a lot bigger. You can get, another way to say that is you can get a lot stronger without getting a lot bigger. Some girls need to get bigger. Like they got no muscle, they need to grow some. And I have girls all the time who are like, please help me grow some muscles. I can't, it's so hard for me. You know, like I want to grow, but it's all about like your volume, your rest periods, your reps,
your eating,
there's and how much you're eating.
And,
there's a science to it, but you're absolutely right. You can, like a ballerina or a gymnast are probably two very good examples of people who are incredibly strong. But not necessarily big. Superly strong. Superly strong.
Where did that word come from?
But again, girls, please don't worry about it unless you are that 1 to 3% of the population of women who actually can get really bulky easily. It's very rare. It's very hard to do. So don't let that hold you back. Don't let it hold you back.
Okay, on to, now we're at number 7.
We are at number 7. Yeah.
And why don't you read that?
Okay.
My voice is going out.
I would say this should probably be our last one for the day. We got through 7. I thought we were only going to get through like 5. And I feel like that's really good. And we can do another. And I'm just going to keep adding to this list as I think of things because there's so many things.
We just need to mark that we got through number 7. I'll mark that.
Write that down. And then we'll just keep adding to it. Okay. I love this one. And we've talked about it before. Number 7 is, it is not weird, put some of these around it, to eat mostly real whole food. And I think someone asked a question. He said, Gabe, how do you, Mr. F, Gabe, how do you eat and how do you encourage a fellow man to keep on a healthy eating and lifestyle when I don't see the same visible health detriments as my wife does? Yeah. Classic man story. The wife's like falling apart and her hair's falling out, her thyroid's tanked, and the guy's like, I feel pretty good.
I'm feeling all right.
I feel fine. That's, I'm teasing you. That's actually quite normal. Men's, I mean, you guys are hormonally so much more simple. And just by God's design, I think your bodies handle stress better. Men's, this is why you guys go to war.
God built us to handle stress better.
And that's why you guys go out there and you take a beating when we're not so much made for that, right? Our bodies are made to like sense stress and then, you know, we lose our period because our body's like, no,
Right.
no,
something's about to happen.
It's not good. Yeah. Not enough food, famine, war, whatever. So like our bodies are just, men and women are just so different, and it's actually really cool. But in real life, oftentimes it plays out with a woman's body, especially coming after like many babies, which is stressful. Right. It's a wonderful thing, but it is stressful on the body to carry a child, deliver a child postpartum, and then do it again and do it again. We can end up in a really bad spot, right? And then you add in with the girls years of dieting, usually one way or another. So we have this metabolism that's way lower than our husbands, because men just don't tend to diet hard. Right. They just don't. There's exceptions. I know there are. So you can find yourself in very different places. So that said, what I just said here with number 7, it is not weird to eat mostly real whole food. Mostly, that is what we try to do, whether we're talking about Gabe. And Gabe and I are interesting because you're the man, I'm the woman. I definitely don't handle stress very well. I'm always watching my thyroid. I'm always watching my adrenals because my stress bucket is full. Yeah. You actually handle stress better than me, but I'm way more active than he is. Right. And that's not necessarily normal. I work in the industry, so I know we're not a very normal example. So the way I eat versus the way he's eating right now, not the same. Like, for example, I'm eating more carbs right now than he is because your fasted insulin is a 24, mine is like a 2. So, and a lot of that is due, I don't have diabetes in my family. That's one. Yeah. And also because I'm very active, much more so than the average person. Yeah. But the common thread, and this is, our kids are included in this also, is that we just try to make most of the food that we eat like whole, real, nutrient protein food. Yeah. Yes. So like the majority, and this does not mean that we don't have some feast foods. It doesn't. He'll still have ice cream sometimes on Saturday, you know. I will get my kids a Happy Meal sometimes. I'm not going to be that mom. I'm not. But we do not do that once a week. We certainly don't do that every day. It's mostly meat, eggs, fruit, vegetables, nuts and seeds. That's our staple. And I know that sounds kind of oversimplified, but if most Americans or all Americans just did that, it would solve so many problems. I mean, maybe not all, but like pretty dang close to it for so many different reasons. Some of the big ones being that there's no weird, like, terrible ingredients in those foods. So you're not getting the seed oils, you're not getting high fructose corn syrup, you're not getting MSGs, you're not, I mean, it's just like so many things that we're putting in highly processed food now. Again, I think the poison's in the dose. If you have it here and there, it's probably not a big deal. But if you're eating it constantly, like all day, every day, that does terrible things to your health. And then number 2, real food is so easy to moderate. Like you can just eat a regular amount. You can eat your steak. You can eat your broccoli. You can eat your potato and be like, I'm good. And you're good for a while. You can't moderate Doritos. You can't moderate chicken nuggets. They're designed for
ranch Doritos. You
can't. And everyone knows it. Good. Everybody has that food. You can't moderate. You can't. I mean, okay, most people can't. The people who are true moderates, gosh, that could be another one on the list. True moderates are rare. And every once in a while in my career, I have run into a woman who can literally have half of a brownie and then just walk away. The brownies are still there all day. House smells like brownies. They're just there looking at her. She's home all day. No problem. And unless she's lying to me, you know, I'm like, I am blown away by you. There are not
the self-discipline. There are not to not finish that brownie. I think it's like a genetic and like a chemical thing. Like I really do, because so many people, it's like if it's either I have none of those foods, or I eat the whole bag. It's not. There's no in between. Or I eat till I'm sick. You know. But no one says that about broccoli. No one says that about a steak. No one says that about scrambled eggs because it's not. It's just not having that same chemical effect on your brain. So. Again, long-winded way of just saying our macronutrient breakdown right now looks different. And like our kids who are super, super active, they're eating like all of them are like eating like they have 2 hollow legs because they're growing and they're doing so much with their bodies. So they're eating tons, but we're all eating about the same stuff, right? The same kind of stuff. And one thing that's really helpful, Mr. F, with this sort of paradigm of just trying to eat mostly real food, trying to eat protein at every single meal, 3 square meals a day for the most part, is if you are cooking what I like to call transitional meals, where all the ingredients or the macronutrients are broken up. And we naturally, because we're such big meat people and Gabe's such a big griller, this comes very naturally to us. But I've noticed that with other families, like other women who are making dinners, they tend to be one pot people. And that can be a lot harder. If you've got someone like, okay, I need to not have carbs right now. And then I'm like, well, I can have the carbs, but I can't have gluten for my thyroid. A lasagna is not going to work. You know what I mean? But if it's a hunk of meat,
a vegetable and a carb, like rice or a potato or whatever, the people at the table who that is going to serve, they can have it. And then the people know who it won't. It's fine. I'll just have the meat, all the vegetables. Maybe I'll eat extra meat, and it's completely fine. So I do encourage people to move towards cooking that way more. And to some of you that might seem kind of foreign, but you get used to it. It's a very, very, I think, healthy, simple way to cook. And you just need to get good at grilling. You need to, buy a good quality olive oil, learn how to season your food, buy good quality salt, things like that. And yeah, that's really, really helpful. So,
very good. Very good.
Well, we got through.
This has been my second show today.
7. We got through 7. Did you write that down?
I did.
Okay, this list is going to grow, guys. This list is going to grow.
So we ended up going through our top 7, out of 10 instead of our top 10.
I thought we were only going to get through like 5. So I'm pretty happy.
Our top 10
we did there.
Out of 7 that I wish I knew 20 years ago. And we're adding to this list. I think it's kind of a fun exercise for us too to kind of think through some of these things. But make sure you guys share the show. When it comes out on podcast, it'll drop later on our podcast today. And you can kind of grab that audio version of it and share it out too. And then lastly, we encourage you to download our Fight Laugh Feast app. The show comes out on our app too.
Yeah.
And our app's just a great way to just kind of stay more connected with us instead of all the noise you might experience on your app store or stuff like that. So go to Fight Laugh Feast, type Fight Laugh Feast in your app store, and you can download our app. Other than that, anything else, baby?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think, are we going to be back here next week?
Not next week. We're both traveling. I'm traveling.
You're traveling. Yes, we might take next week off.
Next week off, and then we'll be back the first week of June.
Yeah, there's going to be a couple weeks this summer where we have to record on a different day, though. Yeah. So summertime, guys, bear with us. Yeah, but we'll be as regular as we can.
Yep. Thank you guys for tuning in. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's water break.
Bye.
We live in a culture built upon lies, where truth, beauty, and goodness have been ripped from their foundations and left to each man to determine for himself. The Christian is to be a light in the midst of this dark world, and yet for decades, we have sent our children to be educated by those living in the dark. Public education, secular in nature, has finally arrived at its natural end, the utter absence of God from all instruction, and the imposition of a state-sanctioned worldly morality. Some labor to reform public education, battling school boards, lawmakers, and the ever-evolving ideologies of modern education. We seek a different way, not a new way, but rather a tested one, a proven one, an ancient one rooted in the Word of God, guided by history, pursuant of truth and excellent in everything, one that for centuries past has developed the greatest minds of every generation. We aspire to resurrect the educational paradigms of old, partnering with Christian parents in raising virtuous, eloquent, and wise young men and women by providing them with a Christ-centered and classical education. While the world around us grasps for something novel to save them, we will stand firm upon the rock, which we know does not fail.
My name is Jamie Piles. I joined Samaritan in December of 1996. We were homeschooling our kids, and we were already thinking outside the world's box, if you will. And I saw a little tiny classified ad about this new kind of idea I'd never heard of before. My first reaction was, that's the kind of thing that we would do, isn't it? And so I finally called the number, talked to them, and the more I asked them questions, the more I liked their answers.